Okay, so today I'm going to do another one of these sessions while driving, and now I'm using my Starlink, which seems to be thankfully a little more stable. Even though it's raining, even though it's cloudy, it still seems to be pretty good. The only issue is my battery that I use for it, I've charged up to 100%, the battery bank, power bank, but that only lasts like 2 hours at full percentage. So I can only do this for like 2 hours at most if I wanted to. So that's, in the long run, that might be an issue. I'm surprised it lasts that short, and it takes like 12 hours to charge. Like I charge it overnight, but no, that thing burns out fast, or this thing's very energy consumptive. So that's okay. That's a trade off, and it seems to be relatively stable. And so what I have now is a consideration that we're going to try to actually get into doing this, which I've been trying to do for a while, but now it's easier to take it seriously if I don't have to worry about constant crashes and stuff. The only crash I might have to worry about is if I crash in real life in my car because I'm driving, but whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, there's some fallacy with that. Like, oh, it might be distracting, but it's really not. Like, it's like you're talking on the phone or you're talking to somebody next to you, right? It's not requiring you to do anything, right? That, whatever. You're not like texting or something. So, yeah, let's go. Episode one, we did what all did we discuss? The social contrivance. So now, episode two, we're going to discuss emotion and bypassing critical thinking and logic and reason. So again, these are all things I discussed in my old debate format, which you probably wouldn't know about because it wasn't that big, and obviously I didn't save a lot of it from there. So let's just establish the premise and the framework. So human beings are animals, which is not a negative, right? This is sort of the ego framing fallacy that goes into it. Human beings are animals, right? And the only thing that separates us from animals is what? We can do it as a multiple choice question: A, B, C, or D. A, the heart; B, the soul; C, emotion; or D, the mind or self awareness level of intelligence, right? So it's actually D, despite all those other fallacies. There's no such thing as the soul, right? We just attribute that to other things that we manifest in our mind. The heart, animals have hearts too, but the way we mean it, kind of in terms of emotion, otherwise, right? So none of those things are actually applicable. What actually defines a human being and separates us from animals is our ability to think, our self awareness, our level of intelligence, right? All of that. So it's all about the mind, not about emotion, not about the heart. That's actually what defines us. So you should be weary and skeptical of a society or any power structure that tries to undermine that, that tries to trick you into believing in something else, right? What defines you as a human, as opposed to that makes you separate from animals. I mean, even though we still are animals, but what separates us and defines us as human beings is our ability to think, our ability to, again, at a higher level, self awareness, right? So it's all about the thought and the intelligence, right? That's what defines us and separates us. So it's not the ego, it's not emotion, it's not the soul, it's not morality, it's none of that, right? Those things can be a product then of, well, like morality can be a product of that. Okay, now we set rules and we make laws based, again, with our intelligence, we come up with all this, that's fine, but that's still a functional basis. That's not actually what does it, right? It's all about, again, the self awareness. So there's this attack on the mind and this attack on thought. So you always have to be weary of that. Why would society tell you that thinking too much is bad? Oh, you can't think. That's horrible. Like if you're alone, right? If you're alone a lot, oh, that'll drive you crazy. But really, it just gives you time to think outside of the inhibitions of contrivance. So now, oh, now you might see the flaws of it and not go along with it, and see the contradictions of society. So you should be able to think as much as you want, and it should hold up to it. Otherwise, it's not a sound process, right? So you see a lot of this being skirted and cheated in society in general, not any specific one, but just so you see in every era of human history, there's a way to sort of bypass thought, right? That's what a false absolute is about. That I always use that term, right? False absolute, like God or something like that. It's a way to sort of prevent you from thinking and sort of satisfy you, give you peace of mind. Like we don't have all the answers. That's really what religion is, or other things are, like belief systems. It's not that it's real or not, right? It's not about whether it's true. It's about this is one of my logical razors too that I said. One of my favorites. You cannot dissuade with reason what came about by desire. So people believe in God and faith and things like that, not because they're true, but because they want to, or it gives them structure, so peace of mind. So rather than it's the unwillingness to be puzzled is the absurdist concept, like basically the fact that um, people would rather have a false certainty or false answer than to be uncertain. So with all the mysteries of the world, especially throughout human history, when we had lesser technology, lesser science, etc., people would rather again attribute something to a god and to have these sort of peace of mind false answers than to simply be ignorant and not know and admit they don't know. Right. So it's a comfort. It's a peace of mind. And so what that allows you to do is that allows you to basically, again, it's a false absolute so that you don't think. Right. So you don't have all the answers. You don't know everything. Right. There are a lot of uncertainties, but you pretend like all the answers are out there and, oh, God has all the answers. So we're just going to use it as a placeholder and not think. Right. And that gives us peace of mind, which is why I heavily criticize that aspect of it, because then you're sort of just in this very controlled, subversive state where you just kind of defer to this unseen authority. But what are the chances that overlaps with society and overlaps with power structure in place? It'd be one thing, okay, you're out in the jungle and you're living off the land by yourself. Right now you believe in some spirituality. Okay, that's fine. That gives you structure. But when it's exploited for, which it is largely done, especially through our history, right now it's exploited for that. It's exploited for the to control you and to achieve certain subjective ends. One of the best phrases I have for that is, again, peasants working for promises of heaven. So you have the priests sitting up in in their lofty place, eating nice food, all this kind of thing, and you're struggling in the fields and you're working like a slave almost, and you're doing it because, oh, but God will reward me and God this and God that. But if there was no God, then what would you do? You would hold it accountable in this lifetime. You wouldn't be so willing to put up with all that. So right, we have that, and then we also have the ability to consider that again. So we establish the premise: human beings are defined by thought. We establish the idea that, let me think. Like the way that society tries to prevent you from thinking, the way there's an attack on thought. If you think too much, that's bad. If you're alone, that allows you to think, so that's bad. If you talk to yourself effectively, which is basically just thinking, that's one of my more like comical quotes. I said it in like more story fictional sense, but I said I forget what character actually says that. I use that in like my GTA RP thing too. It's like talking to yourself, or like talking, like somebody like questions them, like, what are you doing? What is he doing? Talking to himself? And then the character responds, um, like talking to myself or whatever. It's assumed that's what they're referring to. Uh, yeah, it's called thinking. You should try it sometime. Right? So he's like mocking them. Yeah, it's called thinking and using your brain. You should try it sometime. So, like, all of those things wouldn't be bad. So think about what you have. You have this objective mind that's capable of infinite objective thought and consideration, in contrast to the limited physical state that you're in, right? Your limited physical body, your myopic senses, five senses, and whatever's in front of you, versus your infinite objective mind that can think about anything at any time, regardless of what's in your physical state. So those two are separate. So the question is, do you reduce the mind to the body and say, like, okay, I'm only going to think in terms of what's in front of me in my limited myopic senses and physical state? Am I going to reduce the infinite objective mind to that? And that's often what people do, and that's how society, indoctrinates people to be easily controlled. Or am I going to try to raise the body to reach the infinite level of the mind, which you can't really do that, obviously. Or you can keep them separate. So that's like cognitive dissonance, always, self-aware, self-actualized from an inherent based state, as I call it. So you look at everything from an inherent standpoint instead of a reactive one, where you're not just reacting, you realize, oh, this is nothing more than a construct, et cetera, et cetera. So you understand the larger process behind it, instead of taking everything at face value as an absolute, just because it's established and structured and preconceived. And so now with that, you have the ability to consider that, again, you would have. I better check the mic sometimes because I don't know why sometimes it'll just mute on its own. Right, like right, like it seems to be working here, but I don't know. I hate that. That ruined my little horror movie tier list. So I had to do it again. So my point is that again, be weary of a society or a power structure that tells you thinking is bad, thinking is the enemy. So distract yourself with what I call folly, favoritism, entertainment, escapism. Just occupy yourself with some functionalism, half-mass zero sum means. Distract. Keep yourself in a constant contrivance state through social contrivance where you're always distracted and like using the lowest form of thought, which is speech, right, reduced into a lowest common denominator in a collective social contrivance sense, instead of thinking freely and objectively, right, always be reactive. So why would any of that be necessary? You should be able to think as much as you want, and it should hold up to that. And if it doesn't, that shows you a deficiency of the contrivance state or something that you're doing. And so what happens is you can't fall for the trap either. Don't fall for the trap of being convinced that thinking is bad, right? Oh, talking to yourself is bad, or thinking is bad, or using your brain is bad, being objective is bad, being smart, or not even smart, but like thoughtful and thinking about everything in detail. Like, oh, that must mean you're slow or you're stupid. Like, you don't understand this process that's absolute, even though it's not absolute, and you're kind of aware of the larger process. You have some inhibition. It's not absolute. You're holding it accountable, right? It's not about like failure to achieve a false absolute. It's that it's not absolute. So you have some inhibition there. Be weary also of the fact that again, it's a process that needs to censor reality. And so it has to control what you perceive, what you consume, right? Like we have to, if you're in a relationship, you can't be friends with people of the same gender, will be often prognostication. Or if you I don't know, certain things you can't consume in the media. You can't, things will be censored, or in a broader sense, like, I don't know, just like all the perceptions have to be controlled. Everything has to be curated for you, basically, right? Why should that be necessary? You should be able to see everything and then determine for yourself, right? So there's all these steps of subverting thought. So be weary of that. You have to be weary of, again, that thinking is bad, that thinking is the enemy, and that again, like a contrivance state is absolute and unquestionable, even though it achieves that state, that appearance, by bypassing critical thinking rather than satisfying it. So a good example is indoctrination in youth, right? Why would this be necessary if society is a sound process? Why would you need to, from a young age, before people can even think for themselves, right? When people are really young, we have to indoctrinate them to our societal standards, and therefore they're not able to critically think about it. And even after that, there's still a lot of conflict, but it's like, why would we need to bypass that and take advantage of their vulnerable state before they can critically think, right? If what we're doing is actually sound and logical and right by whatever standard you use, right? So there's something disingenuous with that because, oh, well, you can do the same thing with anything, and because you're doing it before they can think for themselves, a lot of that will stick. That's why you see a lot of leaders like World War II Germany. There was this group called the Blank Youth, which I won't even say, but like they try to get you when you're young. So it doesn't matter whether you think, oh, our process is more benevolent. It's still, you're preying on the vulnerable at that point and indoctrinating them, and then you use that in hindsight as validation. Like, look how many people go along with this specific contrivance state. That must mean it's absolute. But by that same process, it was never held accountable, right? People aren't doing that because they thought about it critically and came to a conclusion. They're doing it because they were indoctrinated before they were old enough to think for themselves, and then they just kind of go along with it. Or if they don't, then they're sort of held in check and punished by the contrivance state. Like, oh, look at you being so rebellious and defiant to this thing, to this contrivance state that you didn't choose, that you were indoctrinated into, before you had any ability to critically think, right? But now, oh, now you're being defiant. Like, you never chose it in the first place. So, and now you're finally holding it accountable, but oh, we can't have that. You can't hold contrivance state accountable because then it'll be invalidated or revealed as arbitrary, interchangeable, specify. You wouldn't be able to specify. You could do count, even if you say, okay, here's a criteria, like, oh, it's functional and it works. But so, okay, so if we have a different structure that's more functional and more productive, then there you go. Like, there's no, right, it's not an absolute then. It's constantly accountable, constantly changing. So all it would take to invalidate that then, based on whatever pretense or standard there is, right, would be, okay, it's based on productivity, but then you could be more productive. So then does that validate you? Or, whatever the criteria is. So you have to create that. There's a lot of that fallacy to do with what I call the false inherent contrivance response, that like you take this indoctrinated state that you're in after that exposure to society and indoctrination in youth and the result, and now you look at it like, oh, this is how people naturally are. This is absolute. Of course, this is the way things are meant to be. Instead of you realize, no, it's an artificial created state. Now, whether it should be that way, whether that's, that can be questioned, but no, you should acknowledge the inherent man. This was a pretty key term, too, in that format. Like, inherent man, how we would be naturally in nature, right? What is our natural state versus what we're trained into being by society. Now we can understand the difference and make sure, okay, that we're actually agreeing with what we've been created, like how we've been indoctrinated, instead of just, oh, blindly accepting it. No, go back to the inherent state and then decide for yourself what actually has a logical basis, when and how and why. Okay, so now we get into the actual modes of control in society. So here we have emotion and ego, right? So this is a big logical razor that I just recently used actually in like a Reddit. I did like this stupid Reddit thing, right? Like responding to comments. So I happened to drop this line there too. But this is that emotion is nothing more than irrational insistence upon the self. So it's sort of like a cry of egotism, like, oh, everything revolves around me, or you want everything to revolve around you. And then when it doesn't, you get emotional about it and sort of just, you're upset that things aren't going your way. So it's sort of like an outlet for being in a subversive state. Like, you're in this state where you can't actually self actualize and do what you would want to do and all of this. And so now you just get emotional about it as like a catharsis to answer that instead of actually addressing it directly. Right, so you can't do something, you're being prevented from doing something by society, etc. And so you irrationally insist upon the self. And so emotion is just a reflection of some conflict that's existing, some imbalance, right, that you have to overcompensate for. So what happens with that is the simple fact that, again, emotion is nothing more than irrational insistence upon the self. It doesn't serve a purpose, right? If you want to do something logical, productive, functional, then just do it. Or if you can't do it, then don't do it. But it doesn't serve any purpose to get emotional about it, right? So even to best achieve your own self-interest, it would be logical still, it would be best and most productive still not to be emotional, right? Either you do what you're trying to do, whatever your intention is, whatever the desire is, you either do it in your self-interest or you don't. But being emotional is just a placeholder. Again, it'll almost like make you not want to do it then, because you'll express emotionally this frustration or whatever, and then now that acts as like a placeholder instead of, no, there's a reason why you're feeling that emotion, so now let's address the cause of it and actually try to do that. But that's why you're in a subversive state where you can't do a lot of things, so you're meant to just deal with it, right? This imbalanced, unnatural state. And so now what happens with emotion is the fact that, again, emotion is rational insistence upon the self. It's not productive. It doesn't serve a purpose, even to best achieve your self-interest. That same self-interest that you're getting emotional about, the same self that you're insisting upon, you would be better served being logical and rational and unemotional so that you can best achieve it right on a practical level, instead of just like beating your chest almost and just, again, you're just insisting upon, like, okay, this is what I want, or this is what it should be, and this is, unfair, but it doesn't do anything. So emotion is totally unproductive. It's even counterproductive to even achieve that same zero sum end, right? So again, there's a lot of ego in that. It doesn't serve a purpose, and so again, it serves as a placeholder. They can sometimes be counterproductive, and so it's a similar concept like with objectivity, right? Even if the goal of humanity is to serve its own zero sum self interest, like we want to live as long as possible, or we want to be as comfortable as possible, or convenient as possible, whatever. What's important with that is don't, just because you want something to be the case doesn't mean you should pretend it is. So it's like, oh, there's an afterlife and people live forever, and there's heaven and this magical place, and all these wonderful things. It's actually a bad thing to think like that, because yeah, that might be what we want to happen, but it's important not to be so deluded. We should look at the harsh reality of, like, well, it's not even harsh, but to our self, that we want the world to revolve around us. It seems like, oh, look how harsh this is, because it's not revolving around what we want. We should acknowledge the objective reality so that we can best achieve what subjective end we want. So you might think, oh, it's cold and it's indifferent and it's a negative, but it's actually a positive, because don't pretend like, oh, there's a God and there's morality and it's absolute, and it's meant to be, and it's just so divine and absolute. Well, if that was the case, then we wouldn't need laws, we wouldn't need courts, we wouldn't need police, we wouldn't need social stigma, right? We wouldn't need that. So the best way to achieve that subjective morality is to realize it's subjective, and that's why we create the court system, instead of, oh, we're going to pretend it's absolute just because we want it to be, right? We get deluded by our own desire and egotism. Then we say, oh, well, God is absolute and God's going to take care of it. Then we won't do anything. Okay, then get rid of courts. Don't worry about it, right? God will just take care of it because we want it to be the case. So realize it isn't so that you can make it so on the subjective level, right? So that's where being objective to achieve a subjective end is actually a very rational basis. And so even to best achieve your own, again, subjective zero sum self interest, you would be better suited not looking at it from that framework, like, oh, I'm looking at it, the way I want to be, the way I want to see it, because that's how I want it to be. But then you're going to delude yourself, and it'll mess things up, because now you're not looking at reality and figuring out how to best deal with it. You have to resist that temptation again to go for what you want to believe, right? See what actually is true, and now you can try to make it what you want, instead of pretending it already is that way, and then you won't do anything. And then the next part is the egotism. So egotism is, this is something actually I discussed somewhat in that format, but I think I've come to realize its power even more over the years. How much people are controlled by their own ego. This is something that I didn't really fully understand, to the extent even that I'll try to explain now, right, all those years ago. It's like you understand it innately a little bit, but I didn't fully grasp it. I've been sort of, it's hard to explain. I've discovered more with this. A lot of what I'm saying is just things I've already discussed in the past, but this is going to be a little bit different. So the human ego is used to control people in a certain way that is, right, you have this standard of whatever state a person is in, they'll try to reinforce it and indignantly insist upon it, as if they chose it, as if they want it, as if they identify with it. That's what's so dangerous about, again, indoctrination in youth, because, oh, now you're part of this group, and oh, now you'll associate your identity with that group, even if, again, it's just a group, but now you'll associate with it, so now, you'll defend everything it does, and you'll kind of be dug in. So it's like cognitive dissonance. They're like, oh, how can you do something that's not right? Like, everything you do must be right. How could you possibly be wrong? Right. So you'll insist on your ego, and then in the process of doing that, you'll defend the interests of others, right? Like, oh, that group, that's, you don't have to take ownership of that. You don't have to be dug into it. It's like with political parties or anything, right? It creates like a tribalistic thing that you kind of dug in and identify with it, instead of just, okay, I'm going to it can be useful to me. I can get some good out of it, but it doesn't have to be that clear that like everything it does is good because I'm doing it or I'm part of it, or everything it does is bad because I'm not part of it. Right? This is a cognitive dissonance problem. Right? If a person does something, or they're part of a group, or they're part of society, or whatever certain structures, that must mean it's perfect and unquestionable. Because how could they possibly do something that isn't perfect and isn't right? Right? How could they doubt themselves or have that? But it, this is why it's so easy to control people, because all you have to do is put them in that position first, right? Like when they're young, against their will. And now, no matter what that state is, almost like a Stockholm syndrome thing, no matter what state you put them in as a society, now they'll reinforce it. So again, it could be World War II Germany, it could be China right now, it could be anything, right? People will just deal with it then, and like, oh, look how, it's a fallacy too of like, oh, look how I'm dealing with all this adversity, but it's like, okay, so then we'll give you more adversity. Like you enjoy it. It's the inverse of value, because you're kind of being tricked, right? Well, you'll be put in a position by society, and then you'll fall back on your ego to say like, oh, but I'm proud of it. I want to be in this position. I'm happy with it. Look how it's like you chose it. It's like you identify with it, right? And so you have you get people in groups, and it's easy to control them. They'll kind of dig in and like not be nuanced or objective. It'll be like, oh, I'm on this one side. I'm part of this group, so that's it. I'm just everything this group does is perfect. Everything everybody else does is wrong, right? Instead of some nuance, like I'm actually going to have a standard and say, well, this one thing is good. This other thing could be improved. We're going to have a little bit of nuance and self awareness and self reflection and objectivity, right? That's hard for people to do, and it creates like this infinite variable of options then. Well, if it's not perfect, then you could do something else that's more in line with this, and then that's not going to be perfect either. It's inconsistent. So, right. So people want to believe that everything they do is absolute. So they indignantly insist upon their state, whatever it is, that you can control them by sort of putting them in that state in the first place. Right. So by the time they're old enough to think for themselves, oh, now they're already in this state. So now they'll indignantly insist upon it as though they chose it, as though they want it, as though they identify with it, they associate with it, even though they didn't choose it in the first place. You get this even with certain things like at birth, right? Like again, this absolutist who sees through, absolutist philosophy sees through all these superficial things. So there'll be like pride, right? Pride in a person's country. Well, the only reason why you are proud of your country is because you happen to be born there, you happen to live there, which you didn't necessarily choose. Especially, I guess, if you move there, you could choose where you live, but like you're just born there, so now you are proud of it just because of that. So that means that by that same arbitrary basis, it's interchangeable, because if you were born somewhere else, you would have been proud of that. So it's again, you're proud of wherever you live just because you live there. So it's a non-basic self, ego, right? There's no actual criteria. You're not saying, oh, I love this country because of blank reason, this reason, that reason. It's all secondary to, oh, you love it because you live there. So if you live somewhere else, you would love that. So you're just insisting upon your ego and yourself, right? And that which is nearest to you, the nearest postulant. There's also the ignorance insistence, where like, oh, I've never heard of that kind of fallacy, or defining everything by your own limited myopic worldview, in the sense that your limited perception is used as like some special credible basis, even if it's so myopic and such a small fraction of the collective human capacity of knowledge that we have. So it's one thing like, okay, your perception is limited. That's understandable. Everyone's is, right? But it's another thing to treat that in special regard. Like, so anything you're familiar with is more valuable because you're familiar with it. Anything that you're not is less valuable. There's no actual criteria being used there. It's just you're insisting upon your own ignorance, basically. That like, okay, whatever I don't know, I'm gonna pretend isn't valuable, and then anything I know is valuable. You also have that non-choice reaction basis, indignant insistence with respect to race. You know what I just remembered? The first time I discussed this, I think I was playing something on stream. I just remember it. I associate this discussion with that. The non-choice react. I was like playing Majora's Mask or some shit. I don't know why I remember that. And I'm walking like up and down in town, like by the guy, by the banker guy or something. I love that. I wish I had saved some of that shit, but you can tell I didn't really care at that point, or I didn't have room for it either. I mean, even now, I wish I could show you. Like, I have like 10 fucking external hard drives that are all like 8 terabytes, 16 terabytes, whatever each. So like, obviously that's over a long period of time, like 4 years, whatever streaming. But right, like that's a lot of shit that I didn't want to worry about at that time. And then you have to go get around to actually uploading and editing and stuff, which I haven't done, but at least I have some of it, it's saved. But no, whatever. That was just a non sequitur. But yeah, you're walking up and down, and you're like I'm discussing that. I remember that right as I'm saying that. But no, what the fuck was I saying? Yeah, like non-choice reaction of race. So like you're proud of your race, and I get the false duality of this too. Like, oh, you feel like maybe this race has been mistreated throughout history, etc. So therefore, you're trying to like overcorrect and take pride in it, but that's still falling into the same trap. The reality is we shouldn't care about that, and it doesn't matter. It's not a negative, it's not a positive. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have any impact. Absolutists would be more like not for like moral gratification, like, oh look, we view as everybody as equal, and look how righteous we are. No, it'd be more like for cynical reasons. I always use this example. I don't know where this quote actually comes from, if it's my quote or if I did get it from somewhere, but I don't know. That we don't have the luxury to discriminate. So it's like some big time CEO at a company, right, who's scolding somebody for, oh, you didn't hire this guy, right, because of their race, and then it's revealed that it's not for moral reasons, like, oh, you shouldn't discriminate. He doesn't care about that one way or the other. He cares about efficiency. Now, oh, but this person was qualified, and you turn them away for that superficial reason that doesn't have any impact. So now the other company will get them, and So they're looking at it from a Darwinistic perspective, like they don't care about the whole. Yeah, again, look how righteous we are. Look how gratified. No, they just care strictly from a cynical perspective that it doesn't have any impact. So therefore, we're trying to make money. We're trying to be successful. We're trying to be productive. If somebody's qualified and you turn them away arbitrarily for something that doesn't have an impact, like race, right? That's not productive. And now the other company will get them. And so, right, they're looking at it on a functional basis, not on anything else. But the end result is still that you wouldn't care about that because it doesn't have an impact and people didn't choose it, right? So to take pride in it is also foolish, right? You didn't choose your. This actually came up on the political compass test, and it's like the exact phrasing that I'd always said. Like I call it non-choice reaction or non-choice reaction insistence, where again, oh, you're proud of your country, but oh, you just happen to be born there. That's why you're proud. So if you were born somewhere else, or oh, you're proud of your race, but that's just because you happen to be your race. So if you were a different race, you'd be proud of that. But you realize it doesn't really matter, and you shouldn't really, don't value things like this. Value actual actions or things that have significance, things that you choose, right? A good example is like cuisine, right? This is not like culture and cuisine. So, for example, we discussed this with Nightmare, one of my viewers who's good at chess, or I don't know if he still even plays chess, but like we would discuss, well, whatever, this topic came up, but I had discussed it before too. But it's like, he's always making fun of me eating so much fast food or whatever I would do. So, like, oh, Japan loves seafood and sushi, right? And you say like, oh, a stereotype or something, or like they're proud of it. Oh, we're proud of our national cuisine, and we take pride in it, and we get offended if somebody doesn't like it or makes fun of it, or we're really steadfast and proud of our cuisine and the kind of food we eat. But in reality, it's a non-choice reaction. You know why? Because it's because of the environment that you're in. So why does Japan like seafood in part? Oh, because they're surrounded by water. Or why does a different country like a certain kind of food? Oh, because that's what happens to be in their environment. So in a way, they didn't choose that, right? Whatever happened to be there is whatever happened to be what they ate, and that became part of their cuisine and their culture over time. So they didn't choose it. They just made the best of what was around them, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's like, don't give it any special value or meaning because, again, it wasn't chosen, it's just reactive. So you're insisting upon something and giving a special value, even though it's just arbitrary, because, oh, if whatever natural resources happen to be around happen to be the ones that were predominant. So, okay, that's fine, but don't don't fluff it up like, oh, we take pride in it. Like, why would you be proud? You're proud of the fact that your ancestors lived in the same area as you. That's fine, but and made the most of their natural resources around you. That's fine, but in nowhere in that is there a choice. So why would you be so proud of it or care about it? It's like, okay, we made the best of what we had, and that's fine. But there's nothing. There's no special meaning to it, right? It's nothing to be proud of or upset about, right? You're on a you live on an island, so you like seafood. Okay, it makes sense. There's a lot of it. It's available. It's a resource that's in front of you. But it's different. Oh, I'm proud of seafood and I love seafood. But oh, it's only because you happen to be there. Right, you happen to be in that area. Right, and then also you have a sort of non-choice reaction, which allows you to again insist upon something for your ego, and then like certain stereotypes. I won't even say what they are, but like some of them are stupid. Like, oh, they're considered offensive. Well, what are they based on historically? Like, oh, like, I won't say specifics, but oh, like a particular group of people we preconceive. There's a stereotype that oh, they like a particular type of food, but there's multiple fallacies in that. First of all, the world today is so interconnected that it doesn't matter, right? You get food from all around the world. You have so many options that it's not even relevant anymore, right? But even if you trace it back, you'd say there's nothing offensive about that because well, first of all, plenty of people like that food, period, right? So you say, oh, this certain type of food, but billions of people might like that food of all different, doesn't matter, all different kinds. And again, there's nothing wrong with liking a type of food. So I don't see what's offensive. It can be, it's a stereotype, but if you trace it back far enough, you'll say, oh, why does this group like this type of food necessarily? Even if you associate that stereotype, the same thing I was just talking about, right? Oh, it just happened to be the resources that were around you, right, around them and their ancestors, so that became part of their culture and their diet. So there's no real choice in that either, like to be either proud of or to be treated as a negative, right? It just happens to be the case. Those happen to be the resources around that happen to be what people ate, and that again, if you treat that as a tradition or a stereotype, so there's nothing really to be proud of. Again, it's just, or again, to be offended by. People who live on islands tend to like seafood or tend to eat seafood because it's there and it's convenient and it's is that offensive or is that whatever area again and to associate it with race or something is stupid too. No, it has nothing to do with race. It has to do with the environment that you're in. Like, oh, what are the chances that this group of people who lived in this certain area of the world happen to eat the kind of food that grows in that area of the world or that they can find in that area of the world? So it has nothing to do with that. Like, yes, if anybody else had lived there, they would do the same thing because you have to, again, make the best of what you have in that area. So, again, to attach any special meaning or ego or value to that is a definite fallacy. So, I wanted to do something later here where I could maybe do like a horror game or something just for Halloween, even though I usually don't do anything as a tradition, but I almost wanted to do it on mobile just because, it's like, just because I'm doing so much stuff on mobile, I'll do like horror games on mobile. And I kind of wanted to do one other thing to like react to a video of like oh top scary moments caught on some footage, but I don't want to show the video, so I don't know. Maybe I could do that as a recording or something. But yeah, that was a good discussion. So again, emotion and ego, be weary of those things that you're controlled by or that you define yourself by that you don't choose in the first place. Let's segue into a superficiality protest that I talked about, where again people often define themselves by things that don't have an impact. So, for example, in a subversive society, everything meaningful is controlled, right? And so you can't do anything about it, or your ability to do anything with or about it is limited. So, what do people do? They get passionate and focus on as an outlet, like things that don't matter, like sports or entertainment, or again, even they define themselves and take pride in their identity by like, oh, what kind of music do you like, or what kind of, you wear certain shirts or logos, or fashion, or you have certain piercings and tattoos and all that. That's a form of expression, but it's subversive in nature in this sense that you focus on and care about and express yourself in all those ways that don't have any impact, that aren't significant to your life. They're just superficial, right? Non impactful, as if to make up for and overcompensate and serve as a placeholder for all the things that you don't have a choice in, right? So all the meaningful, important things are controlled, but you focus on, or what you're left with is to overcompensate with all the things that don't matter. So sure, get as many tattoos as you want. Doesn't do anything. Doesn't improve your life. Doesn't have any impact. Get as many piercings. Get as many. Get as much jewelry, clothing, logos. Different T-shirts, different your band, your music, your entertainment. None of that actually has a meaningful impact in your life, but you define yourself, or people take pride in that because all the other significant areas are covered or controlled or monopolized, so you can't have much of an impact there. So you instead have to do it this way. So it serves sort of as an overcompensation. So, right, like you're trying to fill a void or do something, but again, as much pride as people might take in stuff like that, they don't. Not only does it not have an impact, but again, it serves as like a placeholder for if they didn't do that, now they'd feel more accountable that they have to do something actually significant. Right, but then they sort of satisfy or distract that urge by saying, "Okay, we're going to care about the superficial level because of that basis." I had actually presented that like as a whole book. That's what I called it. That's why I said superficiality protest. Like I'd written it like a mock book where you're like going into society and showing like all the superficial things that are valued and why not only are they not good, but they're actually bad because again of what I was just saying, like the placeholder effect. And so like take away all that, pretend society's a nudist colony and everybody's at peace with their natural physical state, and it's not a stigma, they're not controlled by the stimuli acme, the natural body is just treated as such, it's no big deal, everyone's at peace with themselves and their state, and you don't care about superficial things like clothing and overcompensations like that. Now you would have to focus on something of actual significance, or you would treat everything as a baseline and let it speak for itself. Right, so imagine that society again, nudist colony, neutral, minimalistic. Right. Now you don't have to hide. You don't have to overcompensate. You don't have to be at an imbalanced state where you have to censor reality. That's another use of that term. Like, oh, the naked, again, it doesn't matter, but the natural inherent state of a person, their body, it's treated as some fringe, big deal. Like, oh no, we saw this celebrity little thing on, the expression I use here is repression leads to obsession because society represses and restricts that. Like we try to kind of control that. Now people obsess over it. So, oh, we saw this bra strap of this celebrity, or we saw this little slip of their bra, or whatever. Right? We see a little cleavage. We obsess over these things as a society, when really, oh, it's just a natural part of the body. It's just that everybody has those parts. Like it's just a natural thing, but we obsess over it because we restrict it. So now it becomes like some big deal when really it's just a normal, natural part of life. So right? That's the key operative phrase: is repression leads to obsession. Instead of, oh, it's just a normal, natural thing, so it's no big deal. That would be the way that we look at it. Right? That's a good logical razor as well. And that's why I have like a million of these. So I feel bad for not having kind of cataloged them a little better. I guess I don't even care. Like, oh, if somebody steals it, that's not. Oh shit. Like, I don't care about if somebody steals it or references it or something, but it's more just like I would have rather kept a record of it. I don't know if you can hear that, like if we have sirens and shit going by. So yeah, we'll maybe take a break, or maybe we'll just end off because this thing is gonna be. But no, I am liking this. If this is actually gonna work, I can finally do what I was trying to do a long time ago. Like I should be able to do these sessions if I want what I want, right, and so the Starlink is working. I don't know how much data this actually takes up, so I'm on a 50 gig plan roaming, but I would like to. I can't believe it actually that this is what I have to use though. Like it's not that crazy, I guess, in the long term, but why should I have to use this if like your regular phone data should be good enough, but whatever. It seems to work pretty well in most locations that I've been at. Sometimes if you're around too many trees, or sometimes if you're, if you go under the overhang of like a drive-through. I guess that was the one thing that maybe seemed to cause it to crash. But yeah, it's a situation where okay, so that was episode two. Again, these aren't going to be the most organized yet, but a lot of good little tidbits from the past. And again, the real difference with this is this time I'm not going to make the same mistake. I am going to upload these to YouTube in some form, even if it, again, the visual of this is not exactly compelling. Or I should try to turn it the other way to landscape, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, you're not looking at anything on the screen anyway. But people are controlled by superficial aspects, so yeah, the main trick with this thing, Starlink Mini, is it's got to be facing the sky, and I'm impressed by that. I guess the clouds don't really seem to affect it, rain or weather or clouds. Right, that doesn't seem to be the issue. It's more just the whether there's just a clear path, like physical objects in the way. So like, what if a plane goes overhead? Could that fuck it up, or like anything in the way? Or that's like a futuristic thing that'll happen one day is like we'll start building in such a way that skylines become you'll never have a clear open sky anymore. There'll always be buildings, there'll always be more things, right, built higher and higher. So you try to look up at the sky and there's always something in the way, right? There'll be we're not at that stage yet, but there'll be something like that. There'll be certain advertisements in the sky, there'll be certain, technology, things like that. There'll be certain, I don't know, just the structures, right? Because it's so much empty, open, free space that's not being used. So it feels like that's the way. Those are the two unexplored frontiers. The deep ocean, right? The depths of the ocean, those are sort of untapped, and there's a lot of potential there. And also the sky, and then also obviously space. So yeah, let me try to figure out what we want to do here. Again, that battery is probably at 50%. That's crazy, man. Or oh, I guess it held up a little better than that. It's still saying 2 hours and it's like 80%. So even though that was like probably 40 minutes, so maybe it was whatever. It keeps fluctuating, but it is a bit of a power guzzler, this thing, which is fine, but you would need like a little backup one or just a stronger one. It's not like I'm intending to do these for super long anyway, right now, but I'm just saying if I wanted to do one like all day, right, I should be able to without having to end off or switch, or I could like switch to mobile data for a second and then it shouldn't crash, and then switch to another battery, not a battery, but the power bank. So do I dare to try to go under the overhang again? I can't believe that would have been what done it. That's actually comical. Mobile streamer crashes their stream by trying to get fast food in a drive-through by going under the shit, so my Starlink Mini doesn't work. So I should leave like the cellular data on, or I should just go inside, or I just shouldn't even get fucking fast food, as I'm trying to be a minimalist anyway. So I mostly just want to stop somewhere for a minute. So okay, so that topic was good. Now we'll put the little thing be right back. And then The main difference is, right, again, with the cult of personality aspect that happens so much, is that you would basically be in a position to, um, right, if you show your face or something where you are, or stuff like that, people would actually care about that, or that would actually have some value to it. Let me compare one thing. Like, okay, so this is on the, it shows the Bluetooth icon because, oh, I'm using the Bluetooth headphone, even though I'm not trying to use it as a mic. So now if I put that away, let me compare how this sounds between the mic now, right, with apparently the Bluetooth messing it up. Maybe that's why I muted because, oh, the battery disconnected on that. I put that away. Now, how does it sound on this, right? That could be the fluctuation. So, okay, we'll end there, I guess, and then this is kind of what I want to do. If I'm driving or something, I can do these little bite-sized sessions.